medicine and finding, what it means to be amongst people that are practitioners, medicine people and whatnot. And that's kind of how I got led into Decrim, through our previous member, Carlos Pizzola. I met him through him, got in contact, and then ended up coming in contact with you and being part of Decriminalize Nature. And from there, it's been a beautiful journey, just working and seeing everyone expand and wanting to grow community and learn how to operate within these medicines, whether it be politically, spiritually, communally, solo, whatever it may be. It's just good to see this growing and to be a part of it and be part of conversations of, things changing, whether it be policies or, people with task force or just communities looking to better themselves with, earth-based sacraments, entheogens and whatnot. So, yeah, just a little bit on that, just been kind of going through the journey and figuring out how to maneuver in this space and kind of open up doors and open up people's expansion with this medicine on spirituality and connectivity.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. What wouldn't you say you're kind of drawn to when you're 17, 18, you started to get more interested in traditions and practices? Was there any tradition that you were specifically drawn to, or what was that experience like for you where you decided, hey, you know what, I want to tap into something a little deeper?
Yeah, also for me, growing up and seeing a bunch of different natives and how, they grew up is more of a, I know that they didn't just wake up and know some of this stuff. They had to go out there and learn, whether it be go certain places of hikes or understandings of like sacred spots where people had ceremonies, whether their puberty rites ceremonies or they were just ceremonies of their deities or beings, their holy beings or sacred beings, whatever it may be. I started to see that within myself of having to go out, to my own lands and kind of go to the sacred spaces where, let's just say, they gathered a lot of acorn or where people had ceremonies or where people just went off to kind of, find themselves and be themselves and understand who they are and what it is that they need to do as far as tapping into the nature and understanding the role and the identity of who they are to connect to nature and to understand, what it means to be there and to be on the land and to coexist with the land. And so for me, that's what I started doing as far as, traveling with the people within the native community, just seeing how the community itself, gathers information, how they communally organize. And so for me, that's basically what I started to do within my own communities and my culture, just seeing the singers, talking to certain people, and then just going on my own and going out there and kind of getting a feel for the nature and sitting in some of these sacred spots and actually just being open to it, and that's kind of what gave me more inspiration to want to further, go down that path of nature and spirituality and traditions and understanding, because I know that's how they did it. They just were out there and it came through progression of learning out and, being outside and being with medicines or being, just like anybody gets good at anything, it's because they're constantly doing it or they're repetitionally doing it. And that's how I feel. That's how the natives were able to be who they were because they just constantly lived that way.
How much of that was really kind of self-directed, or did you have a lot of guidance from elders, or was there kind of, you were sounded like, at least from previous conversations I've had, a lot of this exploration you kind of had to discover on your own and then get sort of the feedback from elders. Could you speak a little bit about that dynamic?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of the things were like personal solo treks as far as going out and feeling the land of the animals, the spirit, and getting connected and feeling it for myself, because I always tell people, only you know what you know. No one could tell you how you feel inside or what you're feeling mentally, physically, spiritually. Only you know that. So from there, I was gathering myself and what I felt as far as my connectivity, my role, who I was, and why I was here in this space. And so then from there, that's when I said I started traveling, doing the native activism work and whatnot, but getting aligned with other elders and spiritual leaders and seeing how they do it in their community and how they've transgressed to their understandings and their gifts or whatever it may be within their community or their sweat lodge, or maybe they run the ceremony, whatever it was just seeing how they were conducting themselves, and then also just kind of asking them like, how did you find your gift, or how do you go about, praying to creator or understanding creators, bigger than just us or whatever it may be. So it's a little bit of both from myself and others in the mix of guiding me towards getting connected more.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, thank you. And you said you worked with a lot of activist projects and really were helping out with that as sort of and I know you're still continuing to do that, but what were some big projects that really sort of inspired you as you started out in your activism route?
For sure, it was the Oak Flat because for that it was like a constant moving of like spreading the word. So like for me and the boys with the crew that we had, we would we would have our own car. So while people were doing other things, we would just basically be moving around, whether we'd go to another reservation, so and so would know someone at this chapter house, or someone would know this president of this, chapter, or someone would know this councilman. So people would set up events, whether it be speaking events, just community awareness events, whatever it may be, or even just gatherings where people would cook. People would have ceremonial events, but we would go up and we would have our like stickers, or we would even just speak. Like some of our friends would bring like little pop speakers with microphones, and we would just go around and basically talk about, what's happening as far as, the mining companies destroying the sacred land, but also tying into the local community of how all this kind of ties in together within our traumas and our understandings of, our disconnect from reality as far as our culture or spirituality and our teachings and understandings in that way, whether it be from these mining companies or the oil or whatever it may be. It's just we tie it in to kind of let people know that we have a common enemy as far as these corporations destroying our identity and who we are and our connection to this land. So from there, that's kind of just how that rallied me as far as just giving me the drive to want to push and pursue and continue to go out there. Because as I was traveling through my own, Native people's communities, I started to realize that even they didn't truly understand that, like I said, because of the disconnect and colonization, everything that came in between that, I started to notice that our own people didn't even understand the coreness of our spirituality, our connection, our roots, and our connection to Creator Mother Earth and how we maneuver. Because now it's just like, we need money. That's how we maneuver. That's how we get by. That's how we survive. That's how we make it to tomorrow. We have money and we do this. But, I always understood that we didn't always have money and we had different ways that kept us alive and kept us moving forward. So just all in that, it kind of just showed me, how I need to move and how I should be. And basically just drive for a bigger strive to push spirituality and be out there for the people, because I noticed that a lot of people weren't doing that or they weren't getting it that type of way. So it was cool to kind of get influenced to have that drive and to want to help people and just push on for that that fight for the land and the people and the spirit. It was really cool.
Great, yeah, thank you. And for some, we have some audience here that may not know about what's going on with Oak Flats. Could you share a little bit about what that is exactly?
Yeah, so Oak Flat is basically like a land exchange deal. Former Senator Jeff Flake and John McCain, they created a Midnight Rider bill, and they slipped this bill into the Defense Act bill, which basically like overrides all, I guess you could say, objections and whatnot for the bill. So the bill is considered like a military bill, defense bill. So it just goes into the process and goes on to the way of what it's supposed to be, which was a land exchange between Rio Tinto and Resolution Copper. I think it's like the second largest copper mine in the world. And yeah, they did a land exchange where they wanted to take Oak Flat, which is a sacred land to the Apache people and other Native people in the area, that whether they went there and ate or they did ceremony. But yeah, just in that time, that's basically where the natives started to say like, hey, this is our sacred site. You wouldn't go to like I guess Mount Sinai, how Pope, everyone considers these mountains sacred and whatnot. It's like you wouldn't go and desecrate these mountains, but it's like because the natives for some reason just have no core concept to the other people. It's like you can just destroy this land and take this identity of the people and destroy that. So it was a big thing. It was a huge deal. It was also big time for awareness, especially with all the things going on in the world. I always tell people it's like selling land to a foreign country. It's like they're already doing that, and to me, that's kind of crazy that they're going to do that, and they're already doing it. So it's that's kind of what awoken me to see that it's not change as far as the land destruction, and then also just taking it and selling it. Like, hey, this isn't our land. we're just going to take it and give it away, and to me, that's kind of where I've seen, how everything spiraled out of that and to reconnect or bring the people back. And it's still an ongoing fight. I think they just went up to the Supreme Court in September and they're continuing to fight. I just think I heard an update saying that they're pushing the meeting back to like December. So pretty soon they're supposed to be having the meeting again on what they're going to do next with the mine and whatnot. So yeah, a little bit more on that. You can look online at Oak Flat or ApacheStronghold.com. They have a lot of their updated, things of where they're going or where they've been or their meeting place of where they're going to meet next or certain events they have because they have like meetings at Oak Flat where they bring people together or they have like round fire discussions and talk about what's going on with the policies and whatnot, and what they're doing.
And it seems like this is an issue that's happening everywhere. Do you have any tips for folks, things that you saw worked at Oak Flat that, maybe other people can start to implement? It sounds like you did a lot of on the ground engaging and educating and talking to people and making, sort of a big story about this. What other tips do you have for other folks that might be dealing with mining companies coming in and going after land and such?
Holding your ground and standing your feet on what it is that you're standing on because at the end of the day, these corporations are billion-dollar corporations and they don't care, so it's going to take a lot of like really having to stand your ground and understand that they'll do anything to kind of derail it, whether it's send people that are infiltrators, gather intel off your phones, send in, police, military police, sabotagers, whatever. Maybe there's a lot of things that I've seen. So it's like if people are really want to stand their ground, it's like that's all you can do because if not, they're gonna do everything from stalling, dates of hearings, from pushing back hearings, to just buying people out. It's just things are gonna keep going. So I'd say if people are really wanting to fight, they need to hold their ground and also look within the policies of what it is that actually protects that land because there's different policies like federal policies, whether it be animals, traditions, cultures. There's certain things that protect land. There's a saying this one guy said, he's like, if it wasn't for the animals and the natives, a lot of the land would be considered just everything else because that's what saves like national forest land or certain lands like certain eagles, certain elks, mooses, wolves, natives, culture. So I would say, for people who are doing fights to also look into that aspect because that can also help you have another advantage in the fight for the land. You could say there's, certain animals here or certain this, or there's ceremony here, there's culture here, but I always say make sure that it's legit and backed up because anyone could say that. But if you can actually prove that there's an endangered species or there's a local tribe here that's actually against it or doesn't want to, it just helps the other people who are on the ground trying to fight for the good cause.
Well, thank you very much for sharing all that. We're going to switch gears a little bit here, and I want to talk a little bit about, I've seen this wonderful petroglyph that you have a photo of. Can you speak to sort of the connection with your traditions and mushrooms over time, and kind of how you came across that in your own personal experiences?
Yeah, so I've talked to a couple people, and they talked about how we've had a lot of different types of mushrooms, from edible to psychedelic ones, and they talk about how there were stories of the edible ones and also of the psychedelic, but a lot of the stories are lost. That's what I tell people, like when the church came and whatnot, a lot of our leaders, a lot of the storytellers, a lot of the, I guess you'd say, the encyclopedias, if you will, they were taken out. So it's like, a lot of people can't even go back in time if they wanted to because it's gone as far as the person who makes the story or the person who actually did it. So, before I saw that petroglyph, I was telling people I was already into mushrooms and I was already taking them. Had my big awakening, but then I started just going down the path of getting more in tune with the mushrooms. Because I always tell people there's many avenues. It's just like education, there's many bubbles of education in the big bubble of education, just like in mushroom, there's many outer bubbles of education within that medicine. So for me, that's what I was tapping into was the education of the land, the plants, the animals, and even just the air around, just what's around. And from there, that's where I kind of just understood that when I was taking the medicine, the mushrooms, felt real natural. It didn't feel like a foreign place. It didn't feel like something that it didn't feel like it was described. So I kind of was like, well, I wonder why, this feels so natural. This feels so like a better version of myself that is already here. It's just this medicine is opening the door for me to explore that side of myself. And so then that's when my mother took me up and showed me. And then that's when it clicked. And I understood, that's what it was, it was the fact that we did it and we utilized it for what we used it for. We didn't use it to network or to party or to have a good time or there's none of those. It was like, hey, maybe I want to know what this mountain is for what it is, or maybe I want to know what these ants and these acorn and these oak trees and maybe I want to know what it is to really be a woman or a man, just takes it to the different aspects of things and as far as puberty right ceremonies and understanding your land and being more in tune to that way. So that's kind of where for me, that's where I was like, dang, that's why it feels so good. Because when I take medicine, that's what I take it for is to basically just extend my reach that I already have. It's like adding another 4 feet onto what you can already touch. You're just extending that touch a little more, able to feel that. And that's kind of where I was taking it. And so from there, that's when, like I said, I got really inspired and it made me feel good because, I heard so much about mushrooms as far as they're not, they're not here in California. There's no proof of no one really doing them. And it's always down south. It's always the Mazatec, Marina Sabina type people. And I'm just like, that's so like stubborn and ignorant to think that, considering that, California has the most Native American tribes in one location. It's like, man, that's like saying like we didn't drink like water or we didn't have fruit or we didn't have meat. It's like, yeah, we had psychedelics, we had mushrooms, we had ways to connect us and to bring us in. So in that moment, it really felt good to be like, hey, like this is it's new to me, but it's not new to this land, to this area, to who we are. And so that was really inspiring just to kind of let me know I was on the right path, just to know that I was doing the things that I needed to do to discover that. Because I feel like if I wasn't doing that, why would I need to see that? Why would that have to come into my life, into my timeline? Why would I have to go there and see that? It's like, it's clarification, to keep going. That's how I see it, because whatever else I would have been doing if I was playing football or traveling the world, whatever I wanted to do, I don't think I would have seen that. I don't think I ever would have seen that. But it's like because the path I was on, there it was. And it took me right there, and I liked that. It was really awesome. I didn't have to like search out for it. I didn't have to go around asking people where are the petroglyphs, where's this. I didn't have to do any of that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, and you touch on something there that I think is probably such a powerful sensation, and I've heard other people, and including myself, sometimes it's like the familiarity of these unusual places we go to, right? Like somehow you go there and you feel like, oh, this is real. This is where it's at. This is the space beyond. And I know this space and I've been here before. And like what a strange and unusual experience to have when it's totally new, totally novel, very, trippy, if you will, or very visionary, lots of unusual things happening in your vision, but that sense of familiarity and that sacred connection is so deep that even though we maybe, it's our first couple times doing it, we're still having that sense of familiarity. We've never been to this space before, but it still feels familiar. You want to really touch on that? What do you think that familiarity piece is all about in terms of your connection to these experiences? Are we tapping into ancestral lines? Are we, a form of consciousnness that we didn't know existed before? What's your sense of that familiarity place?
Yeah, I think it's a true root of like consciousness of what we all have. Like you say, everyone can feel it, but yeah, it's definitely a core consciousness that we all I feel like wants all access or could have the ability, whether it be via elixir, ceremony, you name it. It's like everybody in their time before technological, electrical, everything. It's like everyone had their own thing, where they could tap into that. And so yeah, I definitely believe that every place has a core conscience of where it's at. Like I would say, you know, I just think that it's like where God touched everything, and He put core values of Himself every place He touched, whether it was here, down south, Africa, China, this way, that way, Iceland, here, Antarctica. It's like every piece. God touch is a piece of himself and a unique, distinct core. And that's I said that core consciousness of all being, of all knowing, I feel like that's where it is, and that's what at least that's how natives were able to tap in here. Like I said, you go there's a way they tapped in. You go to this place, there's a way they tapped in. You go to China, there's a way they tapped in. You go to Mongolia, anywhere. That's why I'm saying here. That's why I feel like this is a way to tap in here. And it was awesome to tap into that because I feel like that's one thing people are lacking here, specifically in California, is that way of living, because like I always tell people, there was a way of living. It's not like, people believe being in traffic and going to the store and getting your groceries, that's the way of life and that is how it is. But it's like, look, there was another way to live that allowed these human beings to thrive because no one's thriving in traffic, no one's thriving in, I mean, look at all the cancer rates. You look at all the mental, the mental problems, the body problems, the breathing problems. So to me, I'm like, that's not the way. And if someone wants to say that's the way, it's like, well, why do we modern humans have so much sickness and so much problems, whether it be our mind, body, or spirit? And I'm like, because this is not the way. There's a way to live. Back in the day, you didn't have the stresses that we have today. You didn't have the worries on the mind, body, and the spirit, on the cardiovascular system, the nervous system. You didn't have any of that, and I believe that's also part of being spiritually connected. That's what that was part of because once you're spiritually connected, whatever life throws at you, it's like who you are, your roots, and you know how you're gonna get through it instead of just getting thrown in the water with no life vest on and you're just like and that's what I feel like tapping into that allowed me to get out of that phase because it does fucking feel like that. I don't think humans talk about that enough, that life fucking feels like that. Even though we're like, it's all good.
Yeah, and I think about that a lot in terms of why these are criminalized in the first place is because when you have that deep connection to source or to spirit or to the sacred or creator, it's harder to push you off your sense, your track. Kind of that this is always here no matter what. And when you're like you're saying, it's when you're flailing around trying to figure it out, but you have that sort of that grounding, it makes such a difference. So I often think like this decreases the need to consume all the stuff because we got to like prove ourselves or we got to have this club, all this kind of stuff that happens with sort of the process of like flailing, if you will, like you're saying. But having this sort of grounded space is dangerous for the powers that be or the authoritarian structure because now all of a sudden you're in control, you're the source of your own experience. And I think that's really, really important here. Yeah, I just want to kind of chat on a little bit too. You said earlier, and I don't know how much of this you want to share, or just kind of maybe just touch on some of the insights. You said earlier you had a big awakening. So I don't know if that was your first experience or a few experiences in. What did you learn from that big awakening that to you was like that sort of sometimes we call it a breakthrough experience or something else or that experience where it's like, oh wow, I can never unlearn that. Now I know there is something that maybe it's this connection to source. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I've had a couple multiple different ones. So I guess I go for the one that was where I really understood that like we're all here. Like it's kind of like I was telling people like if you're at the playground, like and you see a bunch of little kids playing, there's like a bunch of little things happening at one time. There could be some kids really getting along, playing well. There could be some kids that are just off on their own in the corner, or maybe they're playing on the swing by themselves. And then there's some kids that are fighting and arguing maybe over like the line, or maybe one went up the stairs too fast, or one didn't get off the swing, and then there could be one over here who's crying. Maybe they dropped, their food, or maybe no one's getting off the swing. So like what I realized in that moment was like, the playground, I just seen it in my head when I was on the medicine was like the playground is like God's world. We're all God's children, but it's like God made this playground for us to play and get along. And because we're all stuck in our own like mind, we can't see that this is all for us to have fun. We're over here crying over this, arguing over, who went up the ladder faster, or who can't move by the swing, or who can't go down the slide, or, no one's going over here to talk to Johnny, who's just chilling in the corner, who would probably love to play, but no one's going to talk to him, or no one wants to go ask him how he's doing, or if he has a toy, or whatever it may be. So I just like saw that in my mind, and then I saw myself like kind of on the outside, like in the fence, because I always tell people like if you're on the playground in one of those areas, you can't you can't see what's going on. So like if you're so worried about the slide, the guy in front of you going down the slide, you can't really see if someone over here needs help or that. But then I see myself at the fence like an analyzer. I was just like, man, like that playground's made for me too. Like I want to go out there and have fun too. And like, no one's actually seen, me play on the playground. I've seen everyone play on the playground, and this playground's kind of sad, and I was like, but we're all here to come together. So in my mind, that's when I was like, well, maybe it's time to go to the playground and start playing with, God's children and teaching them like maybe we need to get along and we can all have fun here instead of us like complaining on this nice playground that God made for us. We're over here like in shit we don't need to be instead of just having fun and seeing how we can all have the best time here. That's kind of what I put now on a bigger scale to like the earth, the people, community. This all plays in a bigger role. But yeah, I was just on medicine and I kind of like closed my eyes and that's kind of what I visualized. It was like, everybody playing and everyone kind of just in their own shenanigans, but not realizing that God gave us this playground to have the best time and to enjoy this time and each other and make the best out of it. But like I said, we're all butting heads over stupid stuff instead of like, how can we make this thing move in a good way for everybody?
Yeah, I like that metaphor so much too, because you hear, I've heard everything from this place is a prison to this place is a school to this place is a play. Like I like the playground, it sounds like Rachel also is enjoying the playground theory, or she has some history with that as well. So yeah, I think there's something about that being playing, because playing is dancing, it's navigating, it's negotiating with each other, it's kind of the back and forth, that type of thing. The play is so important because there's going to be give and take. There are going to be people that have, differences of opinions and things like that. But then how do you play with that? And I think that's really critical there. So a really beautiful breakthrough experience. Thank you for sharing that.
Shane, I just had to
Mm.
jump in because as you were speaking, I've had my own breakthrough experience where I've seen a playground where it's like everybody at the age of 8, like me at 8, Larry at 8, Shane, you at 8, all of us at 8, playing on this playground. And it's almost like some of these bullies have taken over the game a little bit and forced everyone into playing a game that really doesn't have has arbitrary rules. When, as you said, it's like this playground is a co-creation, a co-dreaming of all of us at that age, and so it should be so much more fun than what has been allowed to happen here on this earth plane. So I was just tripping out. Had to throw that in.
Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it. Yeah, so yes, it sounds like on this playground, there's also there's things that can be more effective in terms of your journey space, your traveling space to hold a protective space. I know that you work a lot with a Wamkish. Maybe could you share a little bit about the Wamkish and where that sits and how you sort of see that in relationship to your mushroom experiences and how you hold space for that?
Yeah, I believe that is what gives it the experience. Just because, like I tell people, Milwaukee's a big house. We had our ceremonies in there, medicines, whether it be puberty right ceremonies or other ceremonies, whether someone's sick or someone needs help, whatever it may be, or even just celebration. So I always tell people, when you take medicine and you go in there, it's like you're going to be encompassed in that position of like where you're at. Just like, you have your own thoughts and beliefs, but you can go to someone's house and everything's different. You may take your shoes off at your house. Someone may not take their shoes off at their house. You may like meat. This other person may like just swordfish. I don't know. But what I'm getting at is just, when you go into places, they're different. And that's kind of where like, like the wonkish is being that container of holding that, that space. Because I always tell people too, like in our time, we couldn't just retreat to these types of spaces. We were outside. Even our houses were outside. I mean, so is this house, but I'm just saying like it was more of a outside house, whether it was from sticks and it was more like, an old style made traditional home to where it wasn't enclosed by all this drywall and everything like that. So I just let people know like this is where it's at. This is the journey. Just like if you take out the ceremony aspect, you go back to any culture, not just natives, but they were cooking, there was a fire. If they were going to bed, there was a fire. If it was someone's birthday, there was a fire. If someone died, there was a fire. If people were just meeting, there was a fire, and that's all throughout human history, not just natives. It's you go back long enough to any human, there's always a damn fire somewhere, you know. So that's where I always tell people too that just the container itself is old, you know, and it's not the fact that it's this fire because I've had other people tell me they've tried it and they don't feel it, and that's what I'm saying. It's like it's a whole different way of aspecting of coming into it and presenting it and manifesting it there and using it for that way. It's kind of like knowing how to call on something, you know, knowing how to call on the spirit of the fire or spirit of the wind or the spirit of the land. You know, I say as much people can talk, not everyone can do that. You know, not everyone can conjure up these things or do these things without there being some like Wizard of Oz type effect. You know, someone's in the back controlling or dude's fanning the fire underneath. There's a lot of things. I even had a guy told me some guy put speakers in the ground. But what I'm getting at is just the space itself from being that old and teaching other humans how to live. I feel like that's where the Wonkish really comes in strong and powerful to help people. But it's a give or take, you know. It's like if someone needs real help, like they're gonna have to want it, you know. And if they want it, they're gonna get it. But if they want to sit there and be like, nah, this ain't for me, I don't believe in any of this, my life is good, whatever it may be, it's like, yeah, then you're not gonna get it. Just like if you're an alcoholic and you're like trying to go to rehab or trying to quit and you're like, nah, I think I'm okay drinking still. I'm gonna cut it down to just 6 beers. I'm just gonna cut it down to half a bottle. Yeah, I'm good. I don't need to quit drinking. I'm fine. My life's good. You know, and that's how I see when people get that reality check of spirituality or how to be as a human being. It's like they're like, nah, nah, this ain't for me. Like, nah, and then it's like their mind resorts to even stupid like Western movies and how people communicate about natives. And then I could see it just turn into this ugly ass loop. And I'm like, you're the one who doesn't even understand what's going on. And you're going to sit here and like let your mind shoot to this stupid ass thought of like, oh my God, what is he doing? It's like, what are you doing? Why are you here? Why did you come into my space and take this medicine? Why do you want to sit by this fire? Why do you want to take a high dose? Why do you want to come here? And, you know, did you come here to lose it or did you come here to get good? You know, and that's kind of where for me, I've been seeing that, not a lot, but I've seen it with some people and some people have been riding that wave with it. And I'm like, just say the fact that you can't accept responsibility for your life. It's okay. Life's hard, but that doesn't give you the right to discredit something that's been working not only in my life, but for hundreds of thousands of years before me. So it's like people just get mad that they got told that they're not right, you know, and no one wants to hear that. Just like if I'm not eating and someone's like, Shane, you're fat. It's like, damn, I didn't want to hear that. But sometimes we do have to hear those things if we want to get better, you know, and that's how I feel with like the wonkish and the high dose. I feel like that is necessary. Like if you want to be a better version of yourself, you have to get through that crap, man. Because if not, you're always going to resort back to your cop outs. And that could be anything. That could be a cup of coffee. It could be going for a jog. It could be putting on your headphones and clean your. There's so many cop outs besides confronting your shit and being like, hey, we need to do this and we need to do something right, you know, not put it off, you know. That's kind of what I feel like the Wonka is so overwhelming for people because no one ever gets told the real truth. You know, I feel like everyone gets like either part truths or they're just gassed up, you know, whether it's the work community or people that are around. It's like half the time those people aren't going to just show up to your house and want to kick it or hang out and have a good time with you. It's like, I don't give a shit. So that's kind of where I think the Wampish is big on that, and people should look into that because it's like if you want to get better, you kind of got to break barriers. And if you don't break barriers, you're still gonna have your ball and chain, even if you like put on a smile and a thumbs up, you know.
Right. You were speaking a little bit earlier about some of the elements that you bring into the Wamkish and how those are also sort of a big part of the whole ceremony. Could you speak to like the different elemental aspects? I know I had a great ceremony with you back a couple years ago now, and it's like there's so many things going on there. Could you really kind of tap into that for the audience?
Yeah, definitely. So like I like to bring in, you know, a combination of all the elements, whether it be earth, wind, fire, you know, air, water. But for the most part, I like to just get in tune. Like even from when we go up and get the medicine on top of the mountain, we stop, we go around, we build the wong kish, we set it up. Um, I like all those elements because I've been to a lot of places, not a lot, but a lot of places, and some places don't even get things moving. It's like they expect, the crowd or something can get it moving when it's like, if this is your space, start regulating things to move into your favor. Don't wait on people, don't wait on everybody to, oh, what's going on here? It's like, hey, we're going to go up to the mountain, we're going to cut this cedar, we're going to get these dang tarps, we're going to wrap this up, we're going to get it all moving. And so for me, that's kind of where like I like the element of the community, the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, the things that happen with the people I've never even met. But here I am, communally setting things up, building things up, getting things ready, eating with them, inviting them to my family, seeing my kids. It's a very vulnerable situation. So it's like really cool to kind of see those elements of like, I hope people can see that because I know a lot of people don't just invite strangers and around their whole kids and they just like, yeah, come on, come on, killer, come on, this, come on, that. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just people don't do that. They rent out Airbnbs, they go off here, they got private land somewhere. So for me, I think that's a good element, just showing the human element and showing people like, hey, I'm just a guy. Like I'm a dad, I'm a fucking man. I'm not like this shaman or whatever people want to say. Like, yes, I know I have a gift, I know what I can do, but at the end of the day, this is me. Like I watch TV, I kick back, I eat food, I like to play games, whatever, take care of my family. But then just the instant of the medicine of like, okay, I'm gonna start throwing this cedar on, just everything starts going, everything starts moving. It's like a machine.
Yeah,
And
tell me
then that's what I like to also show.
yeah, tap a little bit more into that
Uh,
sector too, because I think that's really was something that was pretty, it was definitely a sort of your attention went there. It felt like it was taking your journey spaces. Maybe you could touch on that a little bit more with the cedar.
yeah, definitely. So like the cedar, I always tell people, just because like I can't get up and shake your hand or bring you a cup of coffee or some shit like that. It's like these trees are real. They're alive. They live and breathe the same air. If all air just used to exist right now, these trees would suffocate just like you and I because they gotta breathe. Everything has to breathe here. They're alive. They're not fucking they're just alive, okay? So I always tell people when the world flooded, we come from the ocean, we're ocean people. And then when the world flooded, we took this river up here to where we're at now, and then where we went and got the cedar, like I tell people, those cedars in that time it had to be just horrible humans were sad, crying, mad, angry, all of it. But it's like now these trees, these tall ass cedars, it's like they can now see and they feel. Not only do they have their own feelings as trees, but now they're gathering the information from the humans. Now, like the humans, kind of like if you went to somewhere and you need a translator, and it's like these trees are the translator now for the people now to talk up, to talk to creator, to let creator know like, hey, your children are down here crying, they're sad, but then it's the opposite too. They're happy, they're laughing, they're joyful, they're having fun, they're growing, they're getting connected. So like I said, it's in between. So when I throw that cedar on, I always tell people I feel like what it does is it gathers everybody's intentions, it gathers your thoughts, your feelings, what you want, what you were, what you weren't, it gathers it all and it's like it throws it up. And I always tell people at that time, that's where you focus. Like that's where you focus on yourself. Like you don't who gives a shit if the game's on, who gives a shit if you left the stove on, who gives a shit if you didn't feed your dog, like gives a shit if your life's in shit. Right now is all you have. So right now is like where you focus on whatever it is you need, whether it's you want to eat better, you want to be less angry, you want to, be kinder, you want to be more open, more optimistic, you want to be healthier, whatever you want your mom, your dad, your grandma, your aunt, people that have passed on, people that have died, people that have came and gone. It's like all that now. It's like time to focus and pray and be thankful and let go and welcome in and let go. It's like breathing. Just it's like you're going through the whole fucking thing. It's pretty cool, pretty fast too. It's like damn.
Yeah, I mean, and I like how you keep bringing back that breathing idea too. I think about that. Just with even just with the ocean, like like the waves coming in and out. It's like this, everything's breathing, like you're saying, everything's coming in and then going out. And same thing with the cedar, with all that, you're just feeling that sort of that again, that play that you were speaking about earlier, sort of tapping into that. I think that's really, really interesting. So you've been speaking a little bit about the Wamkish, speaking about some of the elements. You obviously have this church that you put together. Tell us a little bit more about the church for the Creator and Mother Earth.
Yeah, so the church. So I was looking up when I talked to my lawyer. They were saying how like I didn't even need to do it. I didn't really need to do it just because I'm already a federally recognized Indian, and we already have the Native Religious Freedom Law Act, and so they were like, you don't really need to do it, like you're already under the Native Religious Freedom Law Act. You're a federally recognized Indian, and you're on your own property. So like they can't tell you you can't do a ceremony when you're already you have all the qualifications that let you do what you have to do. And but they're just saying that it could just be a little like cushion, as far as whether it's for nonprofit or bringing in a little bit of money, but also having the religious protections in the state of California, being a religious entity incorporated in the state of California. So they're saying that it's not a bad idea, but I didn't really need it. And so I was just like, well, let's do it, but also I wanted to do it too, to just kind of break stigma, because I noticed that a lot of people have this like, I'm gonna just say unconscious, this unconscious bias, like from being whether Christian, Catholic, or just even hearing stories, again with the stories that are told about my people. I noticed people got things to say, or like I had this one guy. He's like, yeah, he's like, why do you have to call it a church though? He's like, I've noticed that some people when they talk to you, it's like they have to pick between yours or theirs. And I was like, man, I was like, it's not even that. I was like, that's on that own person. Like, I already know what I stand for and what I'm about. Like, I don't have to sit here and have to like argue your faith. Like, yes, I know my faith works. I'm sorry that like, I can go to your church and go to your choir and go to your Bible studies and do all your things, but I'm pretty sure you come here, you're gonna feel a little different when we start talking about God and we start talking about the earth, and it's just a fact, And he's like a Navy SEAL guy, so he's all cocky and he's like, yeah, I just don't like how people have to pick between, whether their religion or yours. I was like, that's not the case though, man. And he's like, well, I've seen it, and I'm like, yeah, right, dude. And I was like, you've been here 3 times, and I was like, your 3 times now equates to over 200 ceremonies that I've had where people actually agree with me and actually see the fact of like coming together and not like putting each other out, because that's how I see a lot of the religions is like, oh, well, if you're not our way, they either do it rudely or they do it nicely. Like I tell people, there's 2 ways you can give someone gum. You could say, hey, your breath stinks, here's a piece of gum, or you could just give them a piece of gum, and that's how I see religion. Some of them will say, hey, your breath stinks, here's a piece of gum, and then some will just give you a gum, but they'll be like, and I'm just like, okay, like that's, if you're about God, if you're about coming together, we should be able to have a dialogue and communicate. You shouldn't be putting up your walls instantly that you don't hear that I'm not a Christian or I'm not Catholic or I'm not saved or I'm not this or I'm not that. It's like boom, walls up, and it's like you shouldn't be that way. Like if you're about God, we should be able to talk about God and commune about God honestly, not just walls up and oh no, I'm only gonna let you in if you're saved, or I'm only gonna let you in if you come to my church. It's like so many stupid things. It's like that word about God here, not our own stupid ass thoughts and beliefs, and so that's also why I wanted to make the church, just to kind of break stigma and show people that this bridge can be made again, because I feel like through the Catholic Church and just Westernism and everything, it's like it really killed a true relationship with us, with the people of faith and people of God, because I feel like the things that Native have and their true core beliefs, that stuff could benefit any religious person. Like you don't even have to change your faith, but just taking care of the earth, honoring the earth, and giving it up to the higher power. It's like, every religion pretty much gives it to the higher power, but it's like most religions don't talk about the earth. You go into Christianity, Catholicism, they don't talk about the earth and protecting it and talking about it as sacred and everything in between. And as far as I'm concerned, they look at it as like, oh, God gave us this earth and we could take what we want. We could take everything we want. I mean, look at the oil fields. Look at how many Christian oil fielders will like argue with you and tell you that God put this oil on earth for them and for their family and for their well-being. Like that's real stuff where people they're like that, you know. And for me, that's totally wrong, especially when it's like look how many people had to die for that. Look at how many people died to this day over petrol. You know, look how many wars are over petrol. Look at all the bad things over petrol, not just petrol, but all the other things that were disregarded from not having that, you know, that connection or relationship to the earth, you know. And so that's kind of where, you know, I just hope that this thing can make people see that because I think this medicine in this way, it opens those doors. And the church is also a big part of destruction, whether it be land or even like with Oak Flat Windsor, what I'm doing with them, they have another mount called Mount Graham, and he's been fighting that for like 20 years, and the Vatican put an observatory on their mountain. So it's like these religions don't give a crap about the earth, and they don't give a crap about the well-being that the earth provides for us humans, God's children. And so that's also why I want the church to show people too, of like, well, if you're about God, let's talk about God. Because if you don't want to talk about God, chances are you're not about God, you know. And that's where I stand on it because like if you are, we should be able to communicate and protecting the earth and honoring the earth shouldn't be that far off your agenda, especially if you want to please God and be God's golden child. It's like you got to be dumb as shit to think like God's not going to consider the land as part of the duty too, or the trees that he made, or the animals, or the waters, or all the other creatures. Like you got to be an idiot to think those don't matter in the whole form of living right, you know?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we have about 10 minutes left. I know that Rachel says we have about 2 questions from the audience, but I just want to tap into 2 more questions real quick. This way we can kind of really get a full feel here. I know that's something that you've talked about a lot as well. You know, you're doing some stuff with Maryland board out there, working with the government, working with some policymakers. When you kind of look at sort of the modern ecosystem, what do you see kind of some of the challenges and the things happening that you're like, oh, I wish this would be a little bit different, or I wish we got to be aware of this, or like, hey, let's pay attention to this. And obviously you're doing the work. So, you know, you can always just point to what you're doing. But when you're seeing like conversations in Maryland and other places, what do you see as being missing from that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I have a bro, shout out to David out in Maryland, working with the Maryland Task Force for Psychedelics. Yeah, they're trying to get me in. Long story short, they're saying because I'm not a residency there that I don't really qualify. But yeah, I was talking to him about some of the things too, about even how everyone's going between like the therapeutical model, the clinical model, or the scientific model, this and that. But I was telling him like no one has the ceremonial model. It's like there's not really any ceremonial model. And I was like, I have a literally a standing working ceremonial model. I was like, but for some reason, it's not looked at. And I was like, that's where I think a lot of the things are missing in the psychedelic community is that truth of the ceremonial aspect and what a ceremony can do for you. Not just see, this is where it gets so jacked up. This is why I don't like the whole mass psychedelic thing, because it's like all mass overpumped, whether it's you're overly making all these spores, you're making all these goddamn you know, mushrooms, you're having all this byproduct, you're having all this stuff, you know, which can also damage the ecosystem for natural mushrooms and et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, you know, the data is being lied, you know, a lot of things are being misconcepted. Some of it's not even true. People are just going with it and getting it out there. But I was just explaining to him of like, you know, if there could be a ceremonial model and people can actually testify for it working, I was like, because these other models to me, they're like placebos. Like they're placebos and also hive mentality. Like it's kind of like if you go somewhere and you're in a group of 10 and you know eight people agree that this place was okay or they liked it. And these other two can't really form an opinion, or maybe three or four can't really form an opinion or they don't know. So they just go off these guys, you know, and they're like, oh yeah, you know, I had a good time, it was cool. It's that, you know, but to me that's not real data. That's like a group, you know, kind of group persuasion type thing, you know, subject to persuasion type thing, you know, and it's like even the medical side, it's like now they're doing it in a controlled environment. So to me, it's like it's not even in its natural state. It's like studying a lion at the zoo versus studying him in the wild. Of course, you're going to get the data you're going to get in the controlled environment, but in the wild, that's a whole different amount of data that you don't have because this is all data that's preconceived, it's cooked up, whether it be you're giving them tranquilizers, you're giving them this, that's what I'm saying. There's so much things that are controlled on this side. But I was telling the ceremonial model, it's not necessarily, it's like that. It's wild. It's everything that goes on in there. It's happening. I'm not, when someone's going through it, we're not shooting them with the benzo or ketamine, or we're not slamming them with fucking MDMA or whatever it may be. And I know places are doing that, whether, they're clinical or they're scientific. It's like they are, I don't know what they're doing, but I know for sure they're not getting the data that I'm trying to bring to the table. And that's what I was explaining to him is like, if you guys can work on a ceremonial model, that would be key, because it's like the data you're going to get is going to be raw. It's not going to be controlled like the other two that I'm talking about. It's going to be raw. Just like in the Wamkish, if you did a brain scan while we were eating or after we ate dinner, and then you did a brain scan at like 3, 4 a.m. when the peak after the peak, it's like, I swear to you, you would see brain changes. And then if you did a post on like before you came to the Wamkish, and then like a 4 week after, it's like, I swear you're going to see brain changes. You're going to see, versus the other side, it's like, of course you're going to see changes. You just fucking gave him synthetic fucking psilocybin with meth. Like, yeah, that's going to make the fucking brain fire off. Like, because I know people are doing things like that where they put little spikes in, or they add a little more just to get it through the bloodstream, or just to pump it through, or just to get it into your brain. It's just crazy. But here it's like, it's real. Like I said, if someone does a microdose, you could lie. That could be a lie. But it's like if you come to the Wamkish and you take 12 mushrooms, 15 mushrooms, yeah, you're gonna have an experience that's kind of like, you're either gonna tell it how it is or you're not gonna say anything. And that's why I don't like this microdose thing either, because it's like, I'm not saying it does or doesn't work, but there could be more lies there than a big dose, if you get what I'm saying. Like, more people can make shit up and make a cool news article or a cool PR or a cool supplement, but this shit, nah, you can't do that on this one.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And, last question before Rachel's questions here. When you hear, and trying to bring this to every different person that we're interviewing, I'm always curious to see how this different dynamics or different perspectives people have. When you hear the words decriminalize nature, what does that mean to you? How do you view those words?
Well, to me, it means like basically free liberation to creation, because it's like everything that is natural it's somehow criminally, like if you look at the lumber industry, you look at anything natural, it's like there's some dirt on those things. Like, even for them to be legal and to be operated, it's like so many dirt on the natural things that are going on. Like, even weed, for them, just weed, like something as simple as weed growing out the ground, like people get human trafficked, people get murdered, people get held ransom. It's like over just bud. And like, I can only imagine what they're doing over other things, from oil to lumber to this to that. So to me, it's just liberation. When I hear decriminalize nature, it's like liberation to all, not just entheogenic plants, but all, because all nature is like under some criminal type hold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Shane. And yeah, Rachel, do you want to jump in and ask those couple questions?
Oh, yes. I have a couple questions from the audience, one from Beam and one from Rumble. The first is, when you were speaking about working with mushrooms, Shane, are there specific strains of magic mushrooms that you work with specifically? And do you find that your experience on different strains is different at all?
No, I definitely work with multiple different mushrooms. The ones that I've had a big breakthrough would be like teachers, or obviously like some different penis envy strains, because they're
I do
really
love
strong.
penis envy.
But for the most part, it's like I use just all different kinds. I don't have a specific like go-to mushroom that I stick to.
Okay, cool. And then my next question was that when it comes to being a shaman, what would you define as being a shaman? And how would you recommend looking for, because let's say like no one's around a church or anyone who perhaps is interfacing with entheogens or psychedelics in a very sacred way, how would you advise people to seek out finding a shaman? But first, like, how would you define a shaman?
Well, for me, I really don't like the word.
Ah,
I just call myself a spiritual leader. Just because the fact of how the word has just, it's just been butchered up so much. Like a
yeah.
shaman today could be someone who has like music and they have quartz bowls, like the shaman could be, a
More
guy
to it
who
than
comes
that,
and
I
brings
think.
his flute with the damn music box, like there's just so many shamans. And so for me, I just call myself a spiritual leader. But for the most part, if you do want to look into that, I'd say, just do your research, look up people, find people, and give an honest look, whether it be reviews or maybe personally get involved with trying to figure out who they are or find out who, what they do, or if there's anybody who could vouch for them, But outside of that, I don't really honestly know because there's just so many nowadays. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It can be what you were speaking of about the whole commercialization of certain things, microdosing, all this other stuff. It can. There's a lot of noise, I think, going on right now, and yeah, I agree with that. Like doing your research, vetting, getting to know people at a personal level, right? Because what you were saying, what like having people come to your family, bringing them in that kind of way, I think that is necessary when it comes to guiding people through these realms. Yeah, thanks for that.
mhm.
Great, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for a great conversation, Shane. It's amazing. We bumped right up against that hour. We probably could
We are
talk
like
for a couple more
perfect.
hours,
Yeah,
so that was
yeah.
great. And look forward to having you as a host here, and you inviting some other folks on to kind of have a great conversation as well in the future. Thank you, Rachel, for being here as well. I really appreciate your behind the scenes and gathering the questions for us and making sure everything's good. And thank you all the audience for joining in, whether you're listening live or you're listening on record. We're going to have this on Spotify, Rumble, and Odyssey are the different programs we're doing. And this is an every other Sunday show. We do this, the time ranges a little bit, but we'll start having a calendar out to let you know when those times will be coming. So keep an eye out for us in the future. Thank you for joining the Restoring Our Roots podcast, which is the voice of the Decriminalize Nature movement. And until next time, tune in, stay rooted, and let's grow together. Have a great night.
Plant power to the people. Plant power to the people. Where you dream is where I'll meet you.